Thank you. I think I will be going directly into the presentation because of time. Time is of essence. Like Bukola said, we'll be taking through a journey of things that we've been able to put together and compress for the pre-election period, and of course for stakeholders to quite understand what to look out for as we go on the feed tomorrow. Okay. So, for us at KDI, for the Anambra elections, we have an intervention that cut across different pillars called the Strengthening Electoral Accountability Project that we are also supported by the UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. So we have, number one, the election security component, where we talk about the election violence, education, and resolution, popularly known as NEVER. We're also putting an eye on political finance, including a campaign finance process. We'll look at the integrity of the ballot as much as possible, looking at what has happened in 2021 based on some of the things on high rev and compare it to what will happen tomorrow, what we are going to be having tomorrow. Then we also have the aspect we call the Niger elections, which is an AI assistant that help to democratize information in the landscape. But basically in Anambra, this is towards having a drive towards peaceful or rather active participation of the people. As we all know that in terms of turnout, in the process it's important to know that it's one of the big characteristics of the Anambra elections. We'll go into it very soon. Thank you. Yes, I think at the moment, I will just go directly into some of the insights. So the very first thing is, Madam Lenz, please don't block the view of my people. Thank you. All right, the very first thing that we looked at after turning all of the data, most especially for the landscape, is we need to also understand that predominantly the Southeast in history has been with the lowest turnout in general elections all across. We look at this data specifically from 2019. And if we look at it to 2023, it dropped to by 15% in 2023. And this is what the data says. So if you look at 2019, this looks like green to me. But maybe to you it could be very solid, maybe black, but the other one is red. So the 2019 is the green color, while the red is 2023. But if you look at it across 2019, going downward based on, so this is arranged on a downward slope for 2019. The Southeast is also coming to be 25.3, while the Northwest is 38.6, 35.5 for North Central, Northeast 34, Southwest 30, like that. If you now go to 2023, of course, the national average is about 26 point something percent, but the Southeast is actually 15% in terms of turnout. So it's just to let us know that conversation around turnout is not basically an issue of Anambra State. It's something that characterizes the region in itself. So, and it's important for us to see. Okay, so we now go into Anambra to see that what exactly has been happening. What does it look like when it comes to election that is peculiar, like governorship election to Anambra? So we then saw that voter turnout has dropped by over 58% in 8 years across elections in Anambra. So if we pick it from 2013, 2017, 2021, and we look at it, voter turnout has dropped by 58%. Can we see what it is? So this is 2010, 16.3. In 2013, it is 24.8. And between 2013 to 2021, it dropped by the negative figure of 58%. So if we look at that, I'll connect it very soon because it's also very important for us to see the gravity of this. It's a whole lot of drop. Now, I should what? Oh, okay, all right. So let's take it calmly. Thank you. So if we look at that, that's what it looks like in terms of the downward slope. Of course, the percentage drop is from 2013 to 2021. So it's very important, and that's why we see the downward slope from 2013, not from 2010. So just to clarify that, thank you. All right. So we then look at, is this an issue of mobilization? Is this an issue? What exactly is going around there? So we looked at different, hypotheses. Let me put it that way. Then we saw something very important that we think stakeholders also need to know: the relationship between voters registration and voter turnout in Anambra elections. Okay. So the overall voter registration growth in Anambra from 2013 and moving like that till this current election, which is 2025, there is also an increase of 58%. So you have the growth of 58 and also turnout on a downward slope, 58. So I had to put together the two slides for us to see it at a glance. 2013 to 2025 for 2013 actually. So sorry, I think it's because of the pixel of the screen, so it's actually 2013. So from 2013 to 2025 there is 58% increase in terms of the growth. But however, like I said earlier, the downward slope of voter turnout is actually the same figure. I don't know if this is coincidental. I don't know if it is just, incidental, but that is what we have, and that is what the figure is saying. So that's on the overall level. We then decided to say it's very important to break this further to see what exactly has been happening across senatorial district. Because if we take it on the overall, we might also be missing some tiny, tiny details. So one of the things we then saw is that, of course, overall increase was there, but across all of the senatorial district, there are also increase in terms of the growth for voters registration. But however, Anambra North experienced 63.4% increase, so there are a bit of disparities across the senatorial district. Central is 54%, and South is 57.5%. That is the increase, growth over the years. So it then means that with these statistics, we have Anambra North that has the highest in terms of the growth rate of voters registered. Then we have South to be next, and we have Central. Let's move and see what the next says. So we look at turnout also as it pertains all of the district based on the number of years we are comparing, which is 2013 till date. So if we look at 2013, we have Anambra South, 27. We have North to be 25.3, and we have Central to be 22.8 based on the data. So it means that from in 2013, based on the corresponding registered voter, Anambra South did a bit high, like better. But if we move to 2017, it is still almost the same tide, the same flow, where we have, but of course, a bit of switch. But in 2017, it is still the South, where we also have the North doing a bit relatively there. But then in 2021, every one of us know what characterized the election, so I wouldn't want to bore us with that. There are conversations of insecurity and all. But in 2021, which is the voter turnout that is the lowest in the history of the country, not just of the state, in terms of governorship election. So if we isolate the senatorial district, we have South to be 9.3%, complete switch entirely of the figures. Then we have 2021 of Central to be 10.8, and we have for North to be the lowest, 8.7. Then we come to realize that this particular senatorial district experienced the highest growth in terms of registered voter. But in terms of turnout, they are the lowest. But do we all know that in 2021, the district, senatorial district now, that is predominantly or has the pronounced or the visible impact or frequency of insecurity in the state is actually here. This is where we have the Ihiala, Hagwata, and all. But in terms of turnout, relatively to their figure, they did better than the North. So the question is, we might be swift to actually link low voter turnout to insecurity. Yes, relatively it affected all. But it then means that when we're looking at turnout in relation to other things, there are other salient and important factors that we need to look at, not just insecurity. Because at the end of the day, even the district that was actually, that insecurity characterized, and we can feel it, even did a lot better in terms of turnout than the Anambra North. So the question is, what is happening in the North? That's the question. What is happening in Anambra North? Can we go back? Can we go back a bit? One of the things that we also need to understand is that in this particular local government, there are so much of hard-to-reach area, especially in terms of conversation around logistics. Some of them are riverine, and in terms of the distribution of polling unit, you see polling units far apart from one another in terms of the distance. And in terms of accessibility, especially in those rural local government, is also one, some of the big concern in here from some of the things we've turned, the data we've turned regarding this. And of course, if we take the voter to PU ratio in all of the district, especially, all of the local government, you have more or high voter to PU ratio in the North than any other district in the state. So if you look at that, beyond insecurity, there are other things responsible for the low turnout in the state. And I think for stakeholders, we need to put an eye on this. For those of us that will be at the North, these are some of the things we need to look at. Logistics is also something very important. So let's quickly move to HINEC. Let's look at what HINEC has done before time. I think listening to the national chairman just yesterday, and of course the supervising national commissioner, said quite a lot around their preparedness. They've done 11 or 12 out of 13 activities. These are the figures of deployment of beavers. In terms of logistics, these are the things that they've been able to, set into motion regarding that. But for us, there's a need for us to look beyond some of these things and to see how deeper some of the assessment or some of the things that have gone ahead of time. So from here now, can we move for us to see how it goes from here? Yes. I think for about 3 weeks now, maybe more than 3 weeks, close to like 4 weeks now, I was also in Anambra to have some conversations, and part of the people we met for peaceful participation is the Joint Transporter Forum. The Joint Transporters Forum is a forum that comprises of Okada, tricycle, road transport workers, and everything, right? Those are the comprises of these people. So we met with them, had conversation, very beautiful conversation, and they said, okay, we will participate peacefully. Shortly as we leave the meeting, we just saw a breaking news from Punch that the Joint Transporters Forum had endorsed the incumbent. So that's not the issue. Endorsement is not the issue. But what is the implication for the elections? We all know that in terms of logistics, INEC rely a lot on transporters. So if you look at that, these are actually predominantly the people that would dictate largely what will happen in terms of logistics. So if the Joint Transporters Forum has endorsed the incumbent, and INEC relies on this union for logistics, really, I think it then means they've taken a position which is partisan in nature. So the implication on logistics is we cannot really talk about their neutrality, really. And of course, in terms of even selective sabotage, it also can be possible. They can be ready-made instrument in the hand of, politicians or whosoever their allegiance is with. And of course, you can also not rule out what the perception of the people will be, even if logistical delay is not deliberate. Eventually, the perception means these people have taken a partisan position, then it can be, said or interpreted in that manner. So basically, what we are saying is this, that at this moment, we are in a state that is a bit there. And it is important to actually look at it. So logistics is one of the things I think stakeholders need to pay attention to tomorrow, most especially as we look at these elections, as we go into these elections. It's also very important and very key. All right. So we also looked at the human resource component, and this is quite interesting. So one of the things we saw is that INEC only just completed the training of its ad hoc election officials on the 6th of November. And what it means by the timetable of the commission is that INEC had just 15 working days to train the 24,000 election day workers that they are deploying. But let's look at it. Let's look at it. Oh my. I apologize. I think this is a bit blurry. I thought it's also going to give me something different. But if you go to INEC Twitter page, one of the things, this particular, if you can see it, is talking about vacancy, right? Can you see? Can we see this? It's talking about vacancy for ad hoc staff for Anambra state governorship elections. And as of the time this was released, is actually September 13. So that means INEC started recruiting for this election, September 13. And the date of the close of application is around October 6, thereabout. So if we move here, and these are some of the things that INEC did also, we don't know why that happened, maybe because of the timeline, the compressed timeline. INEC also brought in technology that ad hoc staff that have been shortlisted can actually go on a platform. I think it's their, I forgot that, now that skips my head, but it's basically some technological platform. I think Telegram is part of it, and there is like INEC School or Porter, where they can also learn what some things are there. So INEC also did that. But let's move. So this is the timetable for training, but I'm somewhat interested in the next slide. And the next slide is talking about the training of ad hoc election official for 2025 Anambra State of Circle Governorship election. And it started on the 16th of October, and it ended on the 6th of November. And on the 6th of November, we also got to know that that was the last day, because some of the observers, I mean, domestic observers that we are on feed together, confirmed that they also saw that INEC concluded that day. The distance between here to here, in terms of working days, is just 16 days. In short, 15 working days. So the question is, had there been some other improved or better model that INEC has used before? Yes. We looked at all of the observers' report after the Ondo elections. And one of the things we saw is that largely every of the observers' organizations actually spoke highly of logistics in the Ondo election, that it actually worked. Of course, there are a few issues, but not as, like logistics failed or bad. So one of the things we saw is that as of the time, 2 weeks to the election, Ondo State, the commission in Ondo State had actually completed training. In short, we remember that about 7 to 8 weeks or 5 to 8 weeks thereabout, the commission in Ondo State was actually doing refresher for the ad hoc staff. It is not the main training. They were doing refreshers. So what it means is that one of the things we saw is that the commission in Ondo actually used 4 to 5 weeks to train in Ondo. But here now, it is actually 15 to 17 working days. What is the implication? What is the implication? It's just basically in about some few dimensions. And we broke it down. No, please, let's go back. Yes. We broke it down into some few dimensions for us to see what we think the implication could be, and as we go out tomorrow, we think these are some of the things that we could look at. Number one is the shorter training really, I think, reduced the mass strain of the process in terms of the issues around beavers, accreditation, report upload. Generally, we think that it might have effect on the competency of the poll workers. So if you look at it in terms of quality assurance, we are also aware that the approach used is cascading. So you train, you do a TOT, they go back to do the rest at the local government level for the master trainers. But in the real sense, was there quality assurance in the process because of the overlapping nature of the training? Then, of course, I think we need to pay attention a lot to beavers tomorrow in terms of handling of beavers. Because in terms of practicalizing and how to use beavers, we are not so sure that there won't be some issues, so that tomorrow we are not hearing that I didn't get password for beavers in most of the polling unit, right? So these are some of the things. I think let's move. Of course, this is just basically talking about a research work that we did as KDI, deployed a survey across the state, and we got feedback from across all of the local governments for about 3 months ago. One of the things that was said is that, or the question asked, is the top difficulties that were faced in the last election. And the last election is the 2021 governorship election in the state of Seco. And topmost of it is the aspect of beavers. Then we go to the late arrival of voting material, delay in attending to voters. So if we look at this, the top three, it is basically linked to the conversation around logistics and also the conversation around how the management of polling unit is. So if we have a compressed training, and people are saying in last election, this is some of the things they faced. Do we think, and it's a question, do we think that it's going to improve tomorrow? We also talk about to ask people how much do they trust INEC to conduct a free and fair election in the state. And this is the outcome. This is the outcome. So let's just say very little, none at all. That looks like some kind of negative variable. Then we go to a great deal. Well, I always know that this is neutral, somewhat is neutral, but let's add it to positive variable for the purpose of this conversation. So it then means that if we add this together, more than 2/3 of the respondents are talking about the lack of trust in the process. So if we look at all of, okay, so it's talking about lack of trust in the process or in the commission, so which also has its own implication. And I think, yes, this is now in terms of the political parties. We got yesterday in terms of this figure that the expected figure in terms of party agent being deployed across all of the polling unit, taking out the 2 polling units with no voter. The figure, the expected cumulative figure is 91,000. But as of yesterday, or a few days ago, we got from the commission statement that currently the deployment of party agent is about 67, in short, it is 67,512 party agent that we'll see on the field tomorrow. So what it means is that even political parties themselves were able to nominate based on the required number. In terms of the number of parties that will be on the ballot, is just 73.4% of the expected. So what it means is that if we take it contextually, it means that there would be about 2 to 3 political parties that will not see their agents on the field. Now, I'm taking this contextually, dividing it equally. But you sure know that from previous experience, in terms of party agent deployment, some of the parties will do more than the other. So it's just for us to see that contextually, that some of the things we see on the field. I think at this point, I would love to pause and... Okay. As I'm standing here, there is a lot of there's a lot of forces. So I'll continue with the ballot integrity. Ma, you can't see them. All right, ballot integrity. So some of the things that we do is also ballot integrity, to see how it has been over the years, and for us to see that some of the things we're dealing with in terms of the figure. So let's look at invalid vote over the years. So the trend of invalid vote across the years has been coming downward. So one of the things we need to also understand is that the voting pattern or the voting process in the state, for whatever we're looking at in terms of low or the turnout in the process, is not about maybe accuracy or ballot efficiency on the part of the people. This data maybe I can say that is actually showing that as we move across the years, invalid vote is reducing. Then we can say maybe people know how to vote better in the state, right, in terms of voting. So if you look at that, 6,457 was the figure in 2023. But one of the things that we need to know or see, and just like we've always done in KDI, is for us to see the magnitude. These are not just figures. 6,000 plus is not just a figure, random figure. It means that 6,457 people came out on the election day, but yet their vote is not even part of the vote that decided. So it means that either as civil society, as media, all of the publicity, reorientating people, we still have some clusters, 1 to 6,000 plus that is there. But what it means is, if we look at the total vote cast in Awka North, in a local government, is 4,242 for 2021. So it then means that the number of invalid votes can swallow this, and we still have some more. So that means a block of a local government went out to vote, and their vote is invalid by implication. So just for us to understand that it is not just a number. Yes, missing ballot, and I would love to explain this very well. For us, missing ballot is just a process. We do simultaneous accreditation and voting, where you accredit, you get ballot, and you go vote. So when you go and vote, it is not expected that between accreditation and you drop in your ballot, that something goes wrong there. You go into the cubicle and you drop your ballot outside. But over time, we've been seeing the process where accredited voter, in terms of the number, is higher than the total vote cast. So, across the years, this is what we've seen. Of course, going downward, but the question still remains, no matter how downward this is going, what is happening in our polling unit? That simultaneous accreditation and voting, that we have simultaneous accreditation and voting, that the process at which you get your ballot and drop your ballot at the cubicle, we can account for the ballot. Don't forget that total vote cast is a combination of invalid and valid vote. So we can't say that this figure is invalid vote. All right? So these are some of the things we see. Can we? All right. And I think tomorrow is also very important as stakeholders for us, and for us at KDI, we're also going to be putting an eye on that, because it's a mystery that we really need to solve. Margin of lead. Of course, in terms of margin of lead, which is the difference between the winner of the election and, of course, the first runner-up. So if we look at this graph, it has been undulating. And for us, it's also a conversation of how competitive the election is or will be. So we are looking at it like this has been going. And in 2017, there is this wide margin. And as we move into 2025, how will it look like tomorrow? And we all know that margin of lead actually goes a long way in the process because we know what that decides. So, because of time, I think I will quickly move. We also put an eye on political finance, campaign finance to be precise. So, if you look at what was the money spent on in the pre-election phase or across board. So let's see what it is. From our tracking, as of November 6th, the total spending in the state on campaign and political process is 7.1 billion, based on our tracking. And our tracking is what eyes can see. Whatever eyes cannot see, we don't track it. So let's look at the breakdown based on candidates and, of course, political parties. Of course, apologies, I think this is pretty much tiny. But I know that in terms of this figure, the APGA candidate, who is the incumbent professor, has actually spent 2.8 billion in terms of this process. Please, I need to say that this is the combination of the spending from the candidate and of the party. So it's important for me to say that so that we interpret it better. And of course, HELP is over 2 billion, 2.03 billion. Nicholas APC, 1.4 billion. Like that, we have AA, we have ADC, we have YP, we have AAC, we have I guess you know what I'm looking for, PDP. We have NRM and we have PDP. And we have ZLP. Our tracking is just pretty much 1 million. It has its own implication, and it shows in terms of some of the parties we've known before, we've seen before, some of the things that at the end of the day, it seems like it is not what it used to be. These are the breakdown of the spending based on categories. For campaign event, we have 5.5 billion spent on campaign event across. We've seen situations where campaign process are going across local government by different parties. So all of those things estimated across all of the parties is this. And we'll see this sharp difference or disparity between the two categories. So if you look at print media, billboard, of course, the answer fee is like the fee from the agency in charge of signage that they pay. So all of those things, put it together like this, we see that there is this form or choice. There is this choice. Please, can you go back? There is this choice of campaign process that has been chosen in the state. So if we go to a state like Edo, you see that it's also different, where they engage different model in terms of campaigning. So this is what the figures look like. I know you are waiting for me to talk about if they've overshot the ceiling according to section 88 and 89 of the Electoral Act that set campaign ceiling of 1 billion. I think in our final report, we'll talk about that. Let's move. Election security, which is the last component of my presentation. And for us at KDI, we also put an eye on election security. From January 1st till October 6th, to be precise, in terms of insecurity situation or insecurity or violent incident that we've been able to track is actually 122. But however, for us, we'll ensure that we actually bring out the division for us to know which one is electoral related and which one is non-electoral related. So as it stands today, the non-electoral violence is actually more, 91, and the electoral related violence is 31. So fatalities recorded across the state is 130 in the both division of the violence. One of the things we need to also see here, which has been totally somehow different from the targetry in other states, is in other states where election will take place, as we move closer to the elections, especially notable electoral event, electoral violence increases. But from the month of July, to be precise, we've seen a downward slope in the aspect of electoral violence in the state, and to some extent, even the non-electoral violence, because if you look at the trend. So what it means is that in terms of the conversation around security or insecurity, it is actually not what it used to be. And I think it's important for us to know that. So we then look at the conversation of insecurity and, of course, turnout in the process. But I think very strongly what we need to know or understand here is that, and I think everybody will agree that there is this strong negative correlation between violence and participation. So over the years, as violence increases, of course, we are still in 2025, and this is counting, but we pray it doesn't count again, right? We are not praying for violence. So as it increases across the years, this is still counting. Voter turnout, which is in red, is going down. So this goes up and this goes down. So it's like there is this negative influence that it has on participation. Of course, this is the number of police deployment across the years. In 2017, there is 26,000. In 2021, there is 34,000. And in 2025, it was announced, I think, just today. The figures before was different, but today it was clarified that it is 55,000 from the Nigerian police. So this figure is basically the figure of the personnel that the police force are going to deploy. So the question, please, can you go back? So the question here is just basically simple. We've been talking about militarization of the process. In 2021, that every one of us were not even certain what security situation would be heading to the election. The Nigerian police deployed 34,000. But now that even data is showing that there is a lot of improvement, we now have 55,000. I think the question is just very clear. And of course, tomorrow we're talking about turnout conversation. We've been having turnout conversation. Hope this is not also going to be what we also discourage in terms of when people see too much. But of course, it's just for us to put that out. At the end of the day, from all of the data, recall, and I think Bukola did mention it, that we've been tracking the landscape in terms of electoral-related security situation or the pre-election landscape in the state. And I remember that our HESRA report, which is the Election Security Risk Assessment, also goes a long way to now put all of the data in one map like this called the Allsport. And this is the second after we've, look at the data all over again as we head into the election. What it means is that at the moment, we still have about 2 local government that is a local government of severe risk. And if you go into our HESRA, which I think we should have from the publication desk, you will see the reason why this is severe risk. Because of some of the things happening, the insecurity conversation coming from there. We have those ones in high risk, and we have majority, most especially on the north and the central, to be moderate risk, which is still saying that all things being equal, if things goes the way it's supposed to go, where potential for violence, like the conversation around logistics, vote buying, is not that pronounced tomorrow, we might see more of peaceful conversation or process in the state, because we have most of the state even hovering around the moderate risk. But if we move, this is our hope. Above all, for all we've said, for us at KDI, we expect a peaceful process tomorrow for us. And at this point, I think it's me just praying to say that tomorrow we hope it will be peaceful, and we pray that it is peaceful. Thank you so much for listening to me, and God bless. I know from the data, data cannot come up like that, and there won't be one.
I would like to take them on some of the things. I know somebody.
They would have done better in the various interviews they had, because there were enough facts coming from the report of the Kimpa team concerning things that were not right in Anambra State. But it is already too late now. But I just want to ask Femi, is there any accountability mechanism to ascertain that police is deploying 55,000 personnel across the country for Anambra governorship election holding tomorrow? They told us that each polling unit, apart from the 2 that there is no registered voter, we have 3 police personnel. But I just want to know, because I have observed the election since 1999, and I also know for fact that when we move away from the city to the hinterland, we have diminishing return of the police personnel and civil defense. I just want to know whether we have a mechanism, accountability mechanism, to measure this number. Secondly, with what Femi has presented to us about the training of our staff, and I know one of the major reasons, apart from insecurity in year 2021 of second governorship election in Anambra, one was that they brought beavers a day before the election, 2 days before the elections, that could not match anybody's finger, 1. And 2 is that the adult trained were withdrawn by their parents due to insecurity. And they brought people on the election day who could not understand the working of the beavers and the procedure. And looking at what Femi has presented now, it looks like there will be a repeat of people who do not really understand the procedures, the alcohol staff that were quickly trained between 17th and yesterday, actually. And the way it is shown. And I also think that the success I watched in Ondo governorship election was the training of ad hoc staff by the INEC personnel, which accounted that everywhere you go, you don't need to teach them like we were doing in Edo. We saw people who mastered what they were supposed to do. Femi, are there accountability mechanism? Okay. Are we worried that the INEC issue that happened in year 2021 will happen again? Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if there is any other, so that we just take that together. Okay. There are 2 people here.
When he was, my name is Juan Asikono of the Nation newspapers. When he was, briefing us, he made mention of 2 high-risk areas. We know in Anambra State, during this insecurity problem, about 9 local governments were, invaded and taken over by some non-state actors. And the security agencies and the government, they keep telling us that those areas have been retrieved. And some of us who are around know that, I think it's a blatant lie. Those 2 high-risk areas, Femi didn't mention them. We would like to, hear those 2 high-risk areas he mentioned, he talked about. And the training of ad hoc staff, like you pointed out, 17 days. I don't think 17 days is enough for beavers, for these guys to master the workability of the beavers. You made mention of Ondo, training of ad hoc staff for 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
4 weeks. Yeah.
And you are using 17 days to train them here. And you want a magic. What magic are we expecting tomorrow? Thanks.
Thank you. I think the last person at the back. Do you still have your question? No. Sit there. Sir? Okay, he's not listening to me. Do you still have your question? Okay, thank you.
Yes, so good afternoon, and thank you, KDI, for a fantastic job. I am Dengie Fangalapu. I work with the Center for Democracy and Development. I think the data I found very fascinating, was the data you presented about party spending.
About?
Party spending.
Okay, participating. All right.
It is a very, very difficult data to track. Even INEC has difficulties with tracking party spending. So it was very, very fantastic to hear. So how did you track that data, and what's the reliability of that process, especially because it is very secretive on how they spend this money?
All right, thank you. Okay, so because of time, I just quickly try and answer all these questions. Let me start from the last one. So what we have done for the past 6 months, the moment election campaign, you have questions? Okay, let me just answer. Okay, let me just answer this at the end. Okay, so 6 months when the campaign, let me stand there because I'm a bit, it looked like this thing is taller than me. So 6 months when the campaign started, so we started tracking, and how are we tracking? So we have over 60 field observers across the 21, over 60 across the 21 local government tracking. So how are they tracking? Please come and help me with this. This is coming up. Okay. So how are they tracking? So we have this, there is a methodology developed, I think with the support of IFES methodology, and that is is called estimated parallel tracking. So what that means is that we track what we can see in terms of the spending. And if you are tracking what we don't see too, and we can verify, that money will have been more than that. But what can we see? We can see billboard. So we can see, then we have media people who are also, we are in partnership with them. So for instance, we have people specifically on national TV and local TV tracking how many times a jingle is played. So, and then you also know that we now do, you do that costing with the current market rate and all those stuff. But there are also some campaign spending we cannot see that happen that we can't verify. For instance, when you go to an institution and then you drop money, we can, it's also campaign, but you can't verify all those stuff, But those one we can see, and there are pictures. Because if you go to, we have a website for that, polymoney.org. So if you go to that, polymoney is just a short form of political money. Then you see the breakdown, the location of billboard, when exactly the jingle was played, and all those stuff verified. And that is what we have seen. But as of today, if INEC, the security agencies, we have to really, really do their job a bit. Like about 3 candidates have surpassed the campaign limit, And at the same time, INEC is also tracking. So at the end of the day, we want to compare notes with what they have. So, but that is how we have been tracking. Then, sir, you mentioned where are those high-risk areas? So when you look at this, I'm sorry for this. This is not that very clear. We didn't even say the high risk. We said severe risk. And those are the places painted in red, Aguata and Ihiala. And then we now have high risk, which is Ogbaru, Inewi, and Inewi South and Inewi North, then the rest are moderate risks. But after, you can check this map. Now, to also talk about why are we saying moderate in even some of those local governments that you say, there are high insecurity in those places. One of the things you need to understand about off-cycle election is police come, military come, DSS come, NDLEA come, and flood your state with their presence. Are you getting what I'm trying to say? So with that, most of those things you expect to happen because they have been happening. Because of the presence and the attention, you don't see them happening on election day. Go and check everywhere, even where there are predictions that this election is going to be violent. Then you now see when you get the news around the do election, you will say, no, these people will just kill themselves. But what happened on election day, when you see the influence of a military in that particular, the security agency in that particular state, there is a way it dials the entire tension. So you can actually say what has been happening before, and then it's likely going to happen on election day. But that is why we say, no, there is no place that is free of risk. We just graded them: severe, high, and then moderate. And that is what we have. I don't know if that answers your question. Okay. You talk about the INEC preparation on the training. 4 weeks to the election in Ondo, what INEC was doing was refresher training. They've concluded all their training. They did refresher. But here, we concluded training yesterday. 2 days to the election. No time for refresher. No time. So what it means is, and the meaning of this for us going to the field tomorrow is that when you see some ad hoc staff who will not be able to operate some of these things, don't blame them. It's a crash course they have. And it's a systemic thing. I don't know if you get what I'm trying to say. So that is exactly the implication of that training. Because like in KDI, one of the things we look at around the election is every step and every detail is speaking to something, and every data is speaking to something. So you cannot just take. So when you look at training timetable, for instance, recruitment started October 16. October 16. No, I'm sorry, September ending, and then ended October 16. And then you want to now quickly start training, and then again now they have to go on Telegram to be doing, some of the online courses. So that is the implication for you. So I think again, when you look at 2021, most of the challenges we have in that election, as our even survey shows, is that beavers. Though they can't, some of them put it as beavers malfunctioning. But in some instances, some of the ad hoc staff could not even operate some of these things. They are trying to get, the RACTEC people were overwhelmed. We pray something like this will not happen tomorrow. One of the things that will not make it to happen is that if like about 70% of the people that will man the election tomorrow were engaged in 2023. So that will help. But if they are new set of people, then many of them will learn on the job tomorrow. The last question, you talk about the accountability of the police deployment. So KDI is one of the organizations deploying a lot of observers tomorrow, because we want to take a sampling method around this to look at. And we have deployed to 2,180 polling units. 2,180 polling units out of 5,000. So we want to see, and then we take that sample. Because over the years, and again, please, can you go back to that data of police deployment? Because the concern is, in 20, we wanted to know what necessitated the increase. And the police, and the data here is just police. Military is not there. Civil defense is not there. So the other ones are not there. This is just police. Punch reported yesterday or today that maybe CP Shogunle announced that they have increased the number from 45,000. No. No. Hold on. I get what you are saying. Please, can you get me the link of the Punch? Except Punch quoted that wrongly. But he said, according to the quote, that it has been increased from 45 to 55. However, even at 45, let's stay with 45. 45 self is even over police alone. Now, we know they are the lead agency, but even in 2021 that the entire state is hot, as of this time, IPOB already say people were taking, some corpers were withdrawing. You understand? So we have increased it, maybe. So one of the things we want to track, like from that 21 polling unit, we take a sample, and then we want to see, and maybe this is going to be the beginning. At the end of the day, at least if we are able to see from 2,180 polling units, so what is it going to be like? It's just like a sample. However, we also know, like you have rightly put out, that most of these deployments are loitering around the state capital. Ma? Okay, so yes, I am just saying what that is something. Now, how many people? Please, can you give her a microphone? All right. Yes, please give her a microphone quickly so that we can close. Thank you.
I said, hello, good afternoon. What they deployed here is 45,000. And out of the 45,000, almost 20,000 of them went down to that Ihiala local government, because that's the main place.
20,000 went down to Ihiala. Almost 20,000 went to Ihiala.
Yes.
Okay,
but for
good.
you saying that all of them are here is not true, because with what I found out, my own I found out on my own is that almost 20,000 of them went down to Ihiala, Agwata, and also Nnewi South. Those points are the main dangerous places you can go as a journalist or observers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think I'm happy for that because, of course, this entire map was also shared with police, and we've had like about 3 technical sessions with them. So I'm happy if they are doing this. But what I am saying is that these deployments they talked about, which you also talk about, we are tracking tomorrow to give. Thank you.
Who is in charge of the election security now, just from 2 p.m. to 3. And he told us that every polling unit, we have 3 police office personnel. He didn't say 20,000 went. He also told us that they will have each local government, out of all the 21 local government, commissioner of police. So we are dealing with the facts as presented to us by the commissioner of police in charge of this Anambra State governorship.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. Sir, do you still have, quick, okay, so that, sorry, sir.
Thank you. I think the effort is worthwhile. My own is that the issue of police deployment has organic link with budget provisions. The issue of police deployment always has organic link with the provision of budget for them, because with an average of 55,000, you're talking about 9 to 10 policemen per polling unit. I don't think that this country is ready for such a very lofty budget on that. In the area of, but the question is, what is their commitment in the polling units. The officer talked about 3 officers in each polling unit. But we know you have inner officers and outer officers. The outer officers, yes, I agree, are the ones that are permitted to hold gun, but from a distance. That they need to tell us, and that's why we made that question. What is their deployment list? That will tell you exactly the total number. You should make an effort to engage them to give you their real deployment list. It's usually shrouded in secrecy or mystery. Another one is this argument around training. I had the presenter say that people are trained for 3 weeks, maybe a period 3 weeks before the election. The budget of INEC is usually 2-3 days training. And the training is centered mostly on POs and PO1 who will handle the beavers. The beavers is a very user-friendly equipment. I have not heard from any research where beavers prevented people. I mean, where the inadequacy of management of beavers prevented people from election. Rather, it is the overzealousness of those ad hoc staff and their collaborators that always lead to beavers' failure. Beavers' failure most of the times is simply, it is usually programmed to start by 8:30 in the morning. If you attempt to open the system before 8:30, it will reset itself, and you will require a technical officer to fix it before you can continue, because you can only do that with a password or code that is involved. So, but most times, due to carelessness, some of the staff will get to the polling unit before 8 o'clock, and they will be pressured by the presence of people to start earlier than 8:30. Even if you open it 8:29.5, you are going to have problem with that beavers. That has been an understanding. Now, who are those POs and PO1? They are basically youth corpers.
Yes.
And except you're telling me that because during their, what do you call it? Is it, there's something the youth corpers do once in a week? Their CDS. There's always provision for continuous training. Because the budget, if you train 21,000 people for 1 week, it will take up the entire budget of that election. I can assure you.
Thank you very much for that clarification. So we are not saying they should do more. We are only talking about the date and the closeness to the election. So it's possible. So I understand what you are saying, sir. So, so that is exactly what. Okay. Because we need to close.
Debate. It's not from here. There is this debate. Do we train long before election or very close to the election, so that those trained will not forget what they learned about?
Yes, that is what we want to now see.
This has been an argument.
That is what we will see tomorrow, because what we said now is that in Ondo, it happened earlier. We saw the way it is, and then we check it tomorrow. I want to thank you all for coming, just on behalf of KDI. Thank you so much. And I think there is a report, the same data out over there, in case some of us we need to pick 1 or 2. So thank you so much for coming, and God bless you.